Ministry of Information and Culture.
NTA International News.
President Muhammadu Buhari returns to Abuja as Vice President Oshibajo inspects damaged vital oil pipelines. ECOWAS Parliament ends extraordinary session, ratifies 12 standing committees. And the head of Service of Nigeria reacts to complaints by civil servants, promises to address challenges affecting workers' productivity. Hello, welcome to NTA International News. I'm Nancy Godi Angunihu. President Muhammadu Buhari has returned to Abuja after a 6-day official visit to the People's Republic of China on the invitation of President Xi Jinping. The president arrived Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport at about 5 o'clock Saturday morning. The special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, described the visit as successful and highly beneficial to Nigeria. He said there are several agreements entered into between Nigeria and China as a result of President Buhari's bilateral engagements with the Chinese authorities will have a huge and positive impact on the critical sectors of Nigeria's economy.
I would say this has been a hugely successful trip. When we travel like that and people say, what have you brought? Normally I tell them that investment trips are not like going to the market and then you come back and they say, how much have you sold today? But you will see that with this particular trip, we can safely say, yes, this is what we sold. Because these were things began under the previous administration, so it's a question of consolidating them. A good number of them have now yielded. As we return from China, we have agreements and commitments in excess of $6 billion. And these are in areas of need like Greek, like solid minerals, like transportation, like power. I believe that this is an outing worth the while for Nigeria.
And before leaving China, President Muhammadu Buhari promised to take revolutionary steps as a matter of urgency towards restructuring the nation's economy through purpose-driven investment with international collaboration in mining, agriculture, manufacturing, and other critical sectors. Speaking in Guangzhou at a reception held in his honor by the governor of Guangdong province, Hu Chunhua, the president described Nigeria's dependence on monocultural economy as disastrous. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports.
President Muhammadu Buhari is the first sitting president of Nigeria to visit Gwangju, the capital of the second largest commercial city in the Guangdong province, the economic nerve center of the Asian country. For thousands of Nigerians who live there and engage in legitimate businesses, it is not only a matter of honor, but a dream come true.
80% of Nigerians living in China live in Guangzhou. We are so very happy that the presidents have hearkened to our voice. We are so proud. So he's coming into Guangzhou. We soften, we mellow down some of the challenges Nigerians in Guangzhou are having.
At an interactive session with Governor Hu Chunhua, President Buhari expressed delight that the Chinese authorities are fully aware of Nigeria's problems and are demonstrating genuine commitment to help in addressing them. He promised that under his watch, the nation's engagement with China will be more purpose-driven in the renewed attempt to enhance the development of infrastructure, particularly in the areas of power supply, transportation, and communication. The governor of the Guangdong province and secretary of the ruling party, Hu Chunhua, pledged to support the full implementation of all the bilateral agreements reached with the Chinese authorities during the president's visit. In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has wrapped up his tour of duty in China with a visit to the Economic and Technological Development Zone 30 kilometers east of Gwangju downtown. He was taken around the Knowledge City, established in 1984 as an important economic development growth pool, as well as an engine of science and technology innovation for Guangdong province and China.
This is an opportunity to look at what they have done and see how this can be replicated by the Ministry of Science and Technology.
This gives us hope that Nigeria can do it. And the journey, I believe, has started.
The high-tech industrial zone has an annual investment in social undertaking exceeding $10 billion. Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
And back home in Nigeria, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo was in Warri, Delta State, where he inspected crude oil processing facilities. These include the Forcados crude oil processing and exporting terminal, where some unknown persons damaged vital oil pipelines. Jide Onifade reports.
Many Nigerians may not be aware that the cause of epileptic supply of electricity in recent time actually emanates from here. The Forcados crude oil processing and exporting terminal is one of the country's largest terminals, being managed by the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria, and has a daily production of 300,000 barrels per day, until on February 14 this year, when it was discovered that one of its pipelines has been tampered with, causing the stoppage of production, which also affected other installed processing facilities, including that of gas. And after a tour of the area, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo gave audience to the company's representatives.
The damage is around 2.5 meter longitudinally along the pipe, and is between something like 30 centimeter to 50 centimeter wide. Of that, our 315 that was dedicated to power, generating about 1,100 megawatt of power, had to shut down, including a major gas plant, a power plant in Egbin, Lagos State.
Speaking to Mr. President on this, I mean, he was particularly concerned about these outstanding gas projects while we are talking about more export of gas. And, you know, his concern is that, look, why is it that we cannot sort these out first? You know, give quick timelines, sort it out so that we can do so much more. So I'd just like to leave that with you, and I hope honestly that we'll be able to make some progress, and that this will be your gift to the people of this country in the very quickest possible time.
Continue to partner with the federal government to engage the communities as much as possible, while holding strong and supporting the security agencies to the best that we can within the limits of the resources that we have.
Working very closely with our colleagues in NNPC and in the rest of the industry to ensure that we bring all the expertise we have, to all the cooperation, all the contracting experience, to make sure we can do this as quickly as possible.
The repair project will last till the end of May, barring any unforeseen circumstances. In Warri, Delta State, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Now, the 5-day extraordinary session of ECOWAS Parliament has ended in Abuja with the ratification and adoption of its 12 standing committees to guide in legislative activities that are fruitful for unity of member states. Joseph Orok reports.
The committees are thus on agriculture, environment, water resources, and sustainable development. Standing Committee on Education, Science and Technology, Infrastructure, Energy, Mines and Industry. Speaker of the Parliament, Mustafa Sisilo, applauded members for their commitments to the agenda of the session. He expressed the hope that when the supplementary act of the enhancements of the powers of the Parliament is ratified, members will consider issues that will foster peace and security in the region. In the meantime, the ad hoc committee on the enhancements of the powers of the Parliament, whose report was not adopted, is to sustain consultation with the ECOWAS Commission and other key stakeholders to sort out gray areas for needed assent.
The good thing is that we were able to put in place the budget for the year, and so when we start in May, we will just be hitting the ground running and legislating where it's important in agriculture, in health, in social services, in communication for the ECOWAS community.
The Parliament has adjourned sitting until May 2016 for the first ordinary session. In Abuja, Joseph Oro, NTA News.
A total of 90,786 registered candidates nationwide participated in the 2016 National Common Entrance Examination (NCEE) for admission into junior secondary schools, one of Federal University colleges. Joseph Johnson reports that the Minister of State for Education, Professor Anthony Amuka, made this known while inspecting the conduct of the exercise in some centers in Abuja.
Pupils in their 6th year of basic education walked to their centers where they would prove they are ready to step it up a notch in their academics. The conduct of the examination was generally peaceful as the Minister of State for Education, Professor Amuka, alongside the monitoring team, visited some centers, including Government Secondary School Zone 4 and that of Zone 3. The minister decried the level of enrollment of incompetent teaching staff witnessed over the years in the sector and says the trend will be redressed.
We are determined to make sure that teaching will cease to be an all-commerce profession. Only those qualified and certified to teach will teach our students.
We are encouraging government to make computers and computing equipment available to these schools before we can embrace CBT 100% for NCEE.
Like many others poised to succeed, 9-year-old Ogonna says there is no going back.
My mom and dad cannot afford the private school, so I really need to pass the exam.
Candidates that qualify after this examination will be invited for final selection interview test. Now, about 26,000 successful candidates are expected to graduate into federal unity colleges across the country. In Abuja, I'm Joseph Johnson, NTA News.
Now, from education, we move on to electoral matters. The coalition of civil society organizations accredited by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to observe the Abuja Municipal Area Council election, which held on Saturday, April the 9th, 2016, has urged INEC to improve security around ballot points. Delivering a 6-point recommendation, the group advised that INEC provides adequate protection of the electoral materials from extreme weather conditions. The coordinator of the coalition, Obin Nawaka, appealed that logistic and welfare be extended to election observers. He said the commission should endeavor to disseminate information on new polling units in good time.
Due to lack of early information to the electorate who are to cast their vote in such polling units.
The group observed that despite the card reader failure in some areas, the innovation has brought transparency and credibility to Nigeria's electoral process. You're watching news on NTA International. We bring you more reports after this break.
Nigeria, there are more than 101 tourist and cultural destinations that can account for over 1 trillion naira in national revenues if properly harnessed. With profitable opportunities across its multiple value chain and to promote the Nigerian culture and tourism sector for optimum economic development, the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, is inviting stakeholders to the 2016 National Summit on Culture and Tourism. Theme: Repositioning Culture and Tourism in a Diversified Economy. Special guest of honor, the President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Exhibition and Gala Night, 27 April 2016, 7 p.m. Conference opening and plenaries, 28th and 29th April 2016, 8 a.m. daily. Venue, Congress Hall, Transcorp Hilton, Abuja. Signed, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thank you for being there. Now, research has shown that visual support as a means of communication encourages independence in autistic children and other children with learning challenges. This was made known at an international teachers' conference on special education organized by Autism Care and Support Initiative in partnership with the Public Affairs Department of the U.S. Embassy in Abuja. Lydia Bassi reports.
Educating the special educator, which is the theme of the conference, is aimed at helping the teachers run an inclusive classroom where all students, including children with special needs in learning, are assimilated members of their school community with set educational system.
We know that a well-prepared teacher is an asset to any child, any parent, any school, any community.
The best people to work with children with autism in Nigeria are people from Nigeria.
And run successful inclusive classrooms. So being able to incorporate students with special needs into their classrooms and their everyday school lives.
Resource persons encouraged participants to introduce more structured schedules which are helpful in promoting positive inclusive setting.
It's a good training. It helps us to work on kids that have learning disabilities.
The Autism Care and Support Initiative encourages autistic children and children with special needs in Africa to have the best chance at success by providing access to local and global opportunities for early, intensive, inclusive education and intervention. World Autism Day is marked on the 2nd of April yearly. In Abuja, Lydia Bassi, NTA News.
The Nigerian Stock Exchange has urged local investors not to engage in panic selling following MISCI consultations from its clients on the ease of capital flows, while Nigeria's overnight interbank rates rose on Friday to around 4.5% from 3.5% recorded last week. Let's join Joy Uzo for details of this and more on Business News.
Nigeria's overnight interbank rate rose on Friday to around 4.5% from 3.5% last week after commercial lenders made payments for local currency denominated bond purchases which drained liquidity in the system. Nigeria sold about 170 billion naira in long tenor local currency bonds on Wednesday, while payment for the debt was due on Friday. The central bank also sold about 63.98 billion naira of 7-month treasury bills at 9% on Thursday to further curtail excess liquidity in the banking system. However, 91.42 billion naira in matured treasury bills was retired on Thursday, resulting in net cash inflow of 27.44 billion naira into the system. Traders said liquidity levels stood around 414 billion naira on Thursday, compared with 401.7 billion naira last Friday, but the level is expected to have dropped after the payment for bonds and possible debit for cash reserves ratio CRR on Friday. Commercial lenders are expected to make provision for foreign exchange purchases by Tuesday, which will further drain liquidity from the system and push up interbank interest rates. Meanwhile, the Nigerian Stock Exchange has urged local investors not to engage on panic selling following MSCI consultations from its clients on the ease of capital flows. The exchange in a statement said that the purpose of MSCI's consultations was not to exclude Nigeria from any of its composite indexes, of which Nigeria is a component. It said that the MSCI announcement on April 29, 2016 will not be to exclude Nigeria from the MSCI Frontier Markets Index. The statement explained that the announcement would be to decide if Nigerian constituents in the index will be part of the semi-annual index reviews due by May 2016. The exchange said that MSCI will usually give considerable time in the event of any decision on any country and will not take any surprise action. The statement stated that the current efforts by the policymakers to boost liquidity in the foreign exchange market would yield results in the short to medium term. At the close of trade on Friday, the All-Share Index lost 0.11%. Next is a graphic summary.
It's time now to join Justin Bemunyi with stories that made headlines within the week.
Hello and welcome. Glad to have you join us on this segment of the bulletin, The Week in Review. I am Justin Bemunyi. We begin with President Muhammadu Buhari's arrival in Beijing, China, where he was received by senior Chinese and Nigerian government officials at the Capital International Airport. The visit was geared towards high-level talks with Chinese authorities on greater support for the development of Nigeria's infrastructure.
If we can gain things from any country, particularly China, in the areas where we are lacking, why not engage with them? And that is why we're here. Agriculture is another area that we're expecting to tie up some deals with the Chinese, and also for security.
In the course of the visit, Nigeria and the People's Republic of China signed 6 new agreements, a memorandum of understanding aimed at boosting trade, economic, scientific and technological cooperation. The agreement finalized by President Muhammadu Buhari and the Chinese leader Xi Jinping is targeted at enhancing the federal government's economic diversification agenda for national growth and job creation.
Under our president, there is a renewed emphasis and focus on infrastructure development.
If we don't believe in our own country, nobody will believe in our own country. So we must make sure that we continue with the trajectory.
Also, during the visit, a $6 billion credit facility was set aside by the Chinese government in support of what President Xi Jinping described as genuine efforts by the Buhari administration to meet the Nigerians' development aspirations. And in furtherance of his administration's resolve towards the development of science and technology for socio-economic advancement, President Muhammadu Buhari also paid a fact-finding visit to the China Aerospace Science and Technology Corporation.
So in terms of security, in medicine, in education, in agriculture, space science, space research will be very useful to the country.
Within the week under review, the Senate reconvened after a 3-week recess. Similarly, in the outgoing week, the House of Representatives resolved to re-examine the 2016 budget due to the prevailing economic situation of the country.
I want to do this in the overall national interest to ensure that we have a workable budget that can immediately be implemented.
The 2-year anniversary of the abduction of more than 200 girls from their school in Chibok, Borno State, fell within the week under review. President Muhammadu Buhari assured parents and relations of the abducted Chibok girls that as parent and leader of the country, he understands the torment, frustration and anxiety of the parents and will not spare any effort to ensure the safe return of the girls. Also, at a roundtable organized in their honor, the federal government said Nigerians can do more in the prevention of insurgency and other conflicts by uniting together irrespective of religious, political and socio-economic differences, as well as supporting the government to deal with any security breach.
Despite everything, our people still believe in us. And when I say us, I'm talking about government, I'm talking about the leadership in society. That people still believe that we can do something.
In the same vein, as the Senate also remembered the Chibok schoolgirls, and in its bid to facilitate the use of adequate intelligence towards resolving the abduction of the Chibok schoolgirls, the Senate resolved to invite the National Security Advisor and the service chiefs for briefing.
We've risen as a Senate to also advise the government, on the security agencies to ensure that this national embarrassment comes to an end by bringing back these girls.
Similarly, the House of Representatives urged the federal government to set up an intelligence team to intensify the search and rescue operation of the abducted Chibok girls.
The House also resolves to urge the federal government to assist the parents of the adopted Chibok schoolgirls who are emotionally devastated.
We ask them to release our girls. If you want to fight a battle, face the newly equipped Nigerian Armed Forces. Face the newly energized Nigerian Armed Forces. Come out of your holes and fight like men.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed, at a meeting with members of the Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, BON, in Abuja, assured of the federal government's full commitment to the June 2017 deadline of switching broadcasting in Nigeria from analog to digital.
Based on the efforts we have made so far and what we have on ground at the moment, we are fairly confident that we will not miss that target date.
The week ended with the ECOWAS Parliament resolve to hinge its 7-point strategic plan for the next 4 years on the community's framework, which is to enhance the socio-economic and political integration of the sub-region. This followed the unanimous adoption of the Parliament's ad hoc committee's report at plenary.
The decision of the community is taken in conjunction with the public, with the citizenry.
Because the power of our corporation is with the people. We know now to a large extent the AFC handles that, but now they want them to co-handle it with the Parliament.
Meanwhile, the ECOWAS Parliament has adjourned sitting after its 5 days extraordinary session to reconvene in May for its first ordinary session. And that wraps it up. Many thanks for watching, and do stay tuned for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Justin. Now, the head of the Civil Service of Nigeria, Winifred Oyoita, says most of the challenges affecting workers' productivity will be fixed shortly. She was reacting to the complaints by some civil servants, especially on the lack of functional elevator and power supply in the Federal Secretariat Abuja. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday has more.
Research has it that productivity is directly proportional to available working facilities. And if the working environment is lacking the required facilities for the smooth operation of personnel, human resources will lay wastes, while the emergence of quality products and services will be difficult. Investigation reveals that inadequate power supply to most of the phases of the Federal Secretariat is to a greater extent affecting workers' activities. Daniel Diri is one of the civil servants working in the Federal Secretariat. He wants a replacement of most of the elevators.
At one time, I was actually trapped in the elevator for about 15 minutes. I work in 8th floor, and I realized that going up and down from 1st floor to 8th floor is very difficult. You understand? And before, if you do that 2-3 times, you're going to be exhausted.
Mrs. Oyoita, while going round some of the faces of the Secretariat, says the present administration is a listening one, and that modalities have been put in place for an age-free working environment for civil servants.
And a lot of times we have to be using generator, and then we now run out of diesel. It's really very, very frustrating. Already I want to borrow a leaf from what is already obtaining in Lagos State. They already have about 3 or 4 of these IPP units that are working very well. An elevator is a very sensitive equipment. You can't just keep repairing. So we are planning to replace these elevators this 2016.
With this step by the head of service, it is expected that workers' productivity will be enhanced. Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
And on this note, we call it a day on this outing. Thank you for watching the news.